When it comes to data, whether it's spreadsheets or databases, formatting is not just about making things look good. Yes, making things look visually appealing is important, and yes, part of that is about just making it look nice. But the core purpose, other than perhaps corporate branding, is actually to ensure that data is read and understood by users. The human brain is more likely to be open to something that has a pleasing look to the eye. For example, it's easier to read a table that has 500 records if the field labels are bolded and there is alternating row shading to help you keep track of where you are. Those features take care of the first hurdle, getting past the subconscious hesitation to read anything that looks complicated. The second part of formatting, though, is to make sure that people see and understand what we want them to see from the data. Data and statistics can be interpreted in many different ways, so drawing attention to something could help people get what we want from our data. Formatting lets us do this by focusing attention on certain aspects of the data or organizing it so it's easier to follow the flow. So while formatting makes it prettier, the underlying goals are more important than that. Well, Office 2007 introduced the concept of themes in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And in Access for Office, we adopt themes as well. What does that mean? It means that if I create things like forms and reports, I can quickly and consistently format them to match other Access objects or other Office documents. And it only takes about 2 clicks. Let's see how that's done. I'll start by selecting one of the tables, the contact table. Then I'll go up to Create and I'll simply create a default form. This is nothing new. We've been able to do that in one way or another for a long time. But I want to draw your attention to the left side of the ribbon. And, by the way, we are in the contextual tabs for Form Layout, where we have Design, Arrange, and Format. This is under the Design, and you can actually see an entire group for themes. Here I can work with the colors and the fonts. I'll make some quick color changes just so you can see a little bit of difference. These are subtle, and they're supposed to be. They shouldn't be glaringly different. Now I'll make some of these changes. That looks nice, and pastel colors or some nice ocean-type colors. I could also work with the font. Font sets are actually made up of 2 different fonts. When we look at them like Office, Cambria, and Calibri, they're part of that Office too. And of course, for all of these things, you can also set your own styles. I'm a classic person, and I want Arial and Times New Roman. I'll make that choice. I hope you notice that my fonts did not actually update. This is a known beta issue, but it has been resolved in the final release of the software. So when you choose a font set on your system, you will see the fonts update automatically. But please remember that if you hard code over a regular form or report, in other words, you go to the formatting toolbar and manually choose a certain font, that will always override your theme choices. In this case, it didn't update because of the beta. Normally it should, but manual formatting always overrides the theme. Now here I use the components separately, but themes are normally comprised of both of these things. In some of the other applications, there is a third component called Special Effects. However, here there are just the 2. Normally you'd want to define an entire theme, so that you could have one based on your company name. For example, I might call mine PC Keys and have all of our colors and fonts, and then I can apply it. And don't forget that once I define it in any Office application, that theme is going to be available across applications, so I only have to create it once. In Access, themes are replacing the old auto format option, so if you're looking for auto format, you won't find it for Office. You'll simply have to work with themes, which are a much better, much more updated option. The other formatting option that I've waited a long time for is the addition of conditional formatting in reports. In addition to Access, I use and teach Crystal Reports. It can connect to any kind of a database. And what I've seen between Access 2007 and for Office is bringing Access closer to what Crystal has done for me in the past. The really good news is that if you've worked with conditional formatting in Excel, then the process and the windows that you see in Access will be very familiar. Let's create a quick report so we can look at conditional formatting. Again, I'll go back and make sure that I have my contacts table selected. Then I'll go to the Create tab, and again, I'll create just a default report. I'm not too worried about how anything looks here yet. Right now, I'm just trying to show you some features. Now remember that we actually entered a few pieces of information for customers, so I have to work with the fields and entries that we have. Maybe I want to say that if I ever have a student in the table, remember the table is called Contacts, but we're talking about students, and if they're from our company, which is the You Got It Training Company, we want those to be formatted differently to draw attention to the fact that that's an internal staff member, not a real student. For reports, there are 4 contextual tabs under the Report Layout tool: Design, Arrange, Format, and Page Setup. For design, just like in Form View, I have the themes I can work with, so I can easily make everything match. Right now, I want to go to the Format tab, and near the right-hand side, you'll see an option under the Control Formatting group for conditional formatting. I'll give that a click. The first thing you should do is select the field for which you want to apply the formatting. You do not have to select the field before you click on the conditional formatting option. From the drop-down, I can choose whichever one I want, and I'm interested in the company field. And then I simply need to create a new rule, so I'll click the New Rule button. Now it's simply a matter of working with whatever it is you want to work with. Notice at the top that we have the option to say, check values in the current record or use an expression. Or we can also create conditional formatting by comparing this to other records. For example, if I'm working with budgets and I have a total expenses field, I could compare the total expenses for one expense category, like training, to all of the other expense categories. You get the idea. Conditional formatting can be used in various ways, comparing a value to itself, to other fields, or even fields from other records, depending on what you want to highlight for your specific data and current use. I'll stick with the first option. I'll choose to format only cells where the field value or expression is. I'll simply go with a plain field value. I know exactly what I want it to be, so I'll say where it's equal to. Don't forget, with conditional formatting, you have to do something to change the formatting. So in this case, to make it really obvious, I'll choose to give it an orange background and make the font color red. By the way, there is an expression builder on the right-hand side, so if you want to do something a little more elegant, you can use the expression builder to get that exactly the way you need it to be. Once I get this all set up, I click OK. It will give me a list of all my conditional formatting. I can create more new rules, edit existing rules, delete rules, and once I have more than one, I can also rearrange them because, as it says, rules are applied in the order shown. Sometimes if you have multiple criteria, for example, if a value is too low and you make it red, and if it's too high, make it orange, and you find that it's not working right, it could just be the order that you arranged them in. That's something that you have to test out, based on the exact rules and the data that you're using. I've done enough, though, to get the one rule in place, so I will say OK, and not surprisingly, my record, the very first record, since I am from You Got It Training, now has an orange background with red text. That's all I'll do with this particular report. So now I'll right-click on it and close it. I'll save the changes and call it Contacts with Formatting. And say OK. I've been saying for a long time, since I started using Access and Access 2.0, that there needs to be a faster way of working with the design of forms and reports to keep them from becoming the bottleneck in development. The data, the tables, and the queries are important, but we spend a lot of time making our forms and reports look nice. Themes will simplify the formatting process, and then the ability to use conditional formatting and reports will help us ensure that we can clearly see and communicate what people are supposed to be seeing and communicating from the reports. That will allow us to communicate better and make more accurate business decisions based on the data we see from our databases.